This meeting is being held in compliance with the Brown Act. SCAG offices are open for members of the public to attend and participate in person. Instructions for providing public comment have been provided in advance and are also included in the agenda packet. If a member of this body is attending remotely but is not at a location specified on the agenda, they may observe and comment as a member of the public, but may not participate in any member discussion or voting of this body. For all members participating remotely, please ensure your microphone is muted when not in use. Please state your name during deliberations and whether making a motion or offering a second. Any voting member or member of the public calling into this meeting by telephone can press *6 to mute and unmute. All telephone participants should identify themselves prior to speaking. SCAG encourages all members of the public to participate in its meetings. We are committed to holding meetings accessible to people with disabilities. For members of the public requiring ADA accommodation, please call 213-630-1410. SCAG offers free interpretation services for members of the public needing information in another language. Please call 213-236-1895. The meeting will now begin.
Good morning. Today is Thursday, September 5th. Prior to calling this meeting to order, I'd like to ask members of this body who are calling in by phone to please identify yourselves.
Mr. Chair, this is Joe Kalmick, Region 20 Director. I'm participating under our Just Cause provision as I'm self-isolating with my wife at home due to a positive COVID diagnosis.
Thank you, and I think we'll have a slight clarification on that as we go forward. Just as a reminder, are there any other members? Okay, just as a reminder of this body attending remotely but not at a location specified in the agenda, they may observe and comment as a member of the public but not participate in any member discussion or voting of this body. We will now go ahead and call to order, and then we will go ahead and have an explanation of the Just Cause request. Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Kalmick, for letting us know you'd like to participate using the Just Cause exemption. Unfortunately, at this time, we only have 10 members present in the room. We need to have a quorum in person at one location to use that Just Cause exemption. So if an 11th member shows up, we will let you know and you can participate as a member of the body. But until that time, you're welcome to make public comments and participate as a member of the public, but cannot vote or participate in deliberation of the body. Thank you.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you. So if at any time we have another member walking in with some of the time changes we've had, that could very well happen. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and move on to our pledge. I'd like to introduce, welcome, and ask the Honorable Patricia Locke Dawson to lead us into the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United
States
States
of America and to the republic which is
one nation under God,
indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, I think we have gone through the quorum requirements. Can you confirm that that's in fact where we are at?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we have quorum.
Okay. So we are holding this meeting in compliance with the Brown Act rules relating to telephonic video conferencing meetings. SCAG offices are open for members of the public to attend and participate in person. Instructions for providing public comment have been provided in advance and are also included in the agenda pack. Just as a reminder, to reduce background noise, please ensure that your microphone is muted. We're going to go ahead and go into public comment. I will now open public comment period for this meeting. This is a time when members of the public can offer comment on matters that are within SCAG's jurisdiction, but not specifically listed on today's agenda. Madam Clerk, have we received any written requests to speak or communication?
No, Mr. Chair, we have not received any comments.
Okay, we have nobody online for public comment?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. We have no members of the public walking up to the microphone. So with that, we will go ahead and close the public comment portion of today's agenda. And we will go ahead and review and prioritize the agenda items. Do we have any members of the public who wish to speak on the consent calendar?
I see no raised hands.
Sorry?
I see no raised hands.
Okay, thank you. Any member of the public, I'm sorry, any items from public to be, I'm sorry, any items to be pulled from public consent or pulled as any item for public comments? None? Okay. So if there are no items to be pulled, I will go ahead and entertain motions for approval of the consent calendars. That
Here, I'll
includes
move.
items 1
Second.
through 3. We have a motion and a second. I had taken my glasses off and didn't catch who that was. I hope you did, Madam Clerk.
Before we take an action, I'd just like to ask that we clarify that for purposes of the consent calendar, we are considering item number, just bear with me for 1 second, 2 prior to item number 3 in our approval. That's just for conformity purposes and some legal requirements. So we don't need to take it separately, but we're just acknowledging that we are considering item 2 and approving prior to item 3.
Okay, so just a different order in the same action. So with that, we have a motion. We have a second. Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll proceed with the roll call. Damon Alexander.
Present. Here. Aye. Thought you were, we call it roll call, like if you're present. So we're voting aye.
Thank you. Anna Beltran. Art Bishop.
Yes.
Bill Brock.
Yes.
Margaret Clark.
Yes.
Jenny Crosswhite.
Yes.
Rick Dennison.
Dennison, yes.
Carmen Hernandez. Sherry Horn.
Horn, yes.
Britt Huff.
Huff, yes.
Excuse me. Hernandez,
Kelly?
yes.
I'm sorry.
Hernandez, yes.
Hernandez, yes. Thank you. Dan Kelmick.
Yes.
Stephen Leash.
Steve, yes.
Patricia Lock Dawson.
Abstain. I wasn't at that meeting.
Thank you. Vianney Lopez.
Yes.
Lauren Meister.
Yes.
Luis Plancarte.
Blancarte, yes.
Daniel Ramos.
Ramos, yes.
Jose Sanchez. Jeanette Sanchez Palacios. Nick Schultz.
Yes.
Ali Taj. Tamala Takahashi.
Yes.
Connor Trout.
Yes.
Stephanie Bergen.
Yes.
Dale Welty.
Yes.
Edward Wilson.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
That one once.
Okay, so Mr. Chair, the consent calendar passes with 21 votes yes and 1 abstention and 0
noes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We now move on to item 4, first item on our informational item calendar. Do we have any members of the public who wish to speak on this informational item?
I see no raised hands.
Thank you. Appearing to be none, I will go ahead and ask Mr. Ryan Wolf, SCAG Manager for Sustainable and Resilient Development, to lead us into this informational item.
Good morning. Thank you. Ryan Wolf with SCAG, and I'm here to provide you an update on the Climate Pollution Reduction Program. If you recall, we provided a overview of this back in summer of 2023. And since then, various regional agencies, including SCAG, have been engaging on this. It provided both planning and implementation funding to advance climate solutions. And I'll just get into what has happened since that last update. There we go. So the Inflation Reduction Act, this is a program part of it. This includes a lot of funding across a variety of programs. It will make historic investments in climate reduction. And the EPA is one of the main agencies that has a large amount of funding that is geared towards addressing this. And the CPRG is one of them. And so the CPRG has two components to it. One are planning grants that went out to states and metropolitan statistical areas throughout the country, and then an additional $4.6 billion to implement these projects and programs. So there's, excuse me, double clicked it. So there's 3 key EPA program objectives with this. So the first is to reduce both climate and air pollution. The second is to support jobs and lower energy costs. And then the third is to address environmental justice. And as I'll get into a little later, these are very prominent issues, obviously, in our region, and this contributed to a successful implementation grant that I will profile for you. So in terms of our region, there was 3 metropolitan areas that received planning grants that were eligible to receive them, and all 3 opted into them. LA, Orange County, Metropolitan Statistical Area, San Bernardino, Riverside, and Ventura. And so these planning grants really required the completion of 2 major deliverables: the Priority Climate Action Plan, which has already been completed by each of these 3 areas, as well as the Comprehensive Climate Action Plan. Opting into this planning grant and completing these deliverables was a prerequisite for essentially applying for the implementation grant funding. So in terms of the PCAPs, this Priority Climate Action Plans, these were completed and submitted by all 3 metro areas on March 1st. They included a number of priority sectors that each area saw as critical, near-term implementable actions that could reduce GHG emissions, improve air quality, address environmental justice, all of the priorities of the program. Subsequent to that, only a month later, this program, like many of the IRA programs, was on a very fast track. The implementation applications were due. And so we don't have a good synopsis of all of the applications that came in from this region, but we are aware of some major ones. And these included an application from the Olympics headed by LA Metro. There was also passenger EV charging, which was in a variety of applications. Building decarbonization, both focused on schools, public facilities, residential buildings, as well as commercial buildings. Waste diversion in terms of diverting waste from landfills, capturing landfill gas, so reducing methane and high potential global warming pollutants, and then goods movement applications. The announcements for the awards were made in July 23rd, I believe it was, and there was a total of 25 applications nationwide. So very competitive program, a lot of demand for this, and we did have one successful application here in Southern California, the only successful application in California for $500 million. So a little bit of background on this. The application is called Invest Clean. I won't get into the acronym. It'll take me about 5 minutes to rattle it off. But it was led by South Coast Air Quality Management District in collaboration with a lot of agencies, including SCAG. So this included Orange County agencies, LA County agencies, cities, Inland Empire, San Bernardino, Riverside. The idea is this was a very regional application, which reflected the impact of goods movement on our region. So stretching from the ports all the way to the California border, recognizing there's a great opportunity to to reduce emissions from goods movement and also address environmental justice, all of these key issues, and really reflects the importance of goods movement in this region and the reflection of our region's goods movement system to the national system as well. It's really focused on electrification of goods movement. So this will include heavy-duty vehicle trucks. This will include heavy-duty vehicle charging, as well as cargo handling equipment and locomotives. And then on the other side of that, not just the vehicles, also focusing on the charging infrastructure itself, recognizing that we can have those vehicles, but if we don't have somewhere to charge them, it's going to be a big challenge. The implementation area is very broad, so it includes the entire South Coast Air Quality Management District Basin, as well as some areas outside of that, and really reflecting that, you know, once our containers hit the ports here, they must travel to near dock rail yards, they go on trains, they go to warehousing all throughout our region, and then they travel further than that. So really building out both the infrastructure and the economies of scale to advance electrification in the goods movement sector. Also as well, for SCAG, we will receive a $50 million component of that, really focused on our last mile freight program. And so if you're not familiar with this program, SCAG has been working with private and public sector to identify opportunities to invest in helping private companies switch over their vehicles to lower zero emissions trucks. And in this case, as well as charging. And so in this case, we will continue that program and we'll hope to leverage quite a bit of additional money. To note as well that SCAG has its zero emissions truck infrastructure study. And so that is to help identify opportunities throughout the region to really put in place this infrastructure. And so that will be another additional way that SCAG will support the implementation of this grant. So the next component of this, which is also required deliverable, is the Comprehensive Climate Action Plan. This will be due in summer of 2025. This is more of a traditional climate action plan that many of your cities have passed. All sectors ranging from energy to waste to transportation, including even natural and working lands. This will be due in summer of 2025. And essentially, it is intended to be a regional framework document for how a region such as LA, Orange County, San Bernardino, Riverside, and Ventura can actually effectively meet long-term targets. Those targets will be aligned with the state's 2045 carbon neutrality, and they are really frameworks. So in contrast to your jurisdictions who may have climate action plans or sustainability plans, this does not supersede those. There is no one implementing organization for any of these. These are really an opportunity to set a vision for the region and to identify a variety of basically a cornucopia of measures which can be applied in the proper places and can help move regional climate planning forward. As well, we'll focus on identifying funding opportunities and implementation barriers that can be addressed. And then lastly, although there has been no funding or additional programs identified for this, the idea that when EPA released this program was that these climate action plans could be tools to prioritize future federal funding, but we don't know what those sources would be. So SCAG's role in the process, just to tell you how we've been involved throughout the whole process, is that we've assisted the lead agencies in each of the 3 metropolitan areas that receive these planning grants on both the technical and engagement side of the PCAPs. So that is the narrower climate action plan that was submitted in March. That includes GHG inventories. We've lent them our expertise on our regional model. We've also worked to identify what those types of measures would be. And then on the engagement side, we also help to convene focus groups, not just here in LA and Orange County area, but also in Inland Empire and Ventura to help support that as well. We've also helped coordinate the state priority climate action plan process. So as I mentioned earlier, the states each received theirs as well. And so we wanted to make sure that there was conversation happening between the state and the regions so that these were coordinated and built upon each other as opposed to conflicted with each other. And then finally, we took a lead role and still continue to play a lead role in the LA and Orange County CCAP and CPRG process to develop both of those documents. And then, as I mentioned, whether it be the ZETI, the Zero Emissions Truck Infrastructure Study, the $50 million that we've getting directly through the grant, we will partner to implement the application successfully as it moves forward. And with that, I will stop and happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Before we go forward and open questions, a couple things. We did just have our 11th member walk in. And so could you clarify what that means for our online voting exemption?
Yeah, we now have a quorum in person, so our member requesting to participate under the Just Cause exemption is now invited to participate moving forward.
Thank you.
And please excuse my lateness, that there was some
Sure.
really bad traffic.
You are here. That's good. Yeah. All right, so we will go ahead and entertain comments from members of the ECC. Just a reminder, if you're attending remotely but not at your published location, you can only do public comment. Also, as you do your comments, remember that we are today for the first time trying out a different schedule with meetings and how we move them around. And so I would appreciate the efficiency in some of the questions, perhaps that may not be repetitive in nature, if possible, just so that we can get to our next meeting on time. So with that, I will go ahead and entertain any member comments from from members in the room. Questions? Yes, Ms. Crossway.
I just have a quick question. Since the CCAPs are a framework, do you have recommendations for cities that don't already have climate action plans, how they can best collaborate with their counties in that process? And then would the idea be, would you recommend that they concurrently work on their cap, or that they sort of see what happens with the framework and then work off the framework? What would be your recommendation?
So the CCAPS frameworks, I think, can provide a number of resources to local jurisdictions as they're considering their climate action plans. One, there will be a lot of measures in there which may be applicable to that particular jurisdiction. On the LAOC one, for example, we are going to have a menu of measures. We understand that not all measures apply uniformly throughout a region. And so some may be more appropriate for, say, like in downtown LA versus, you know, a more suburban community. And so these menus of measures will really draw from like best practices, a lot of caps. We looked at all climate action plans in the region, and we did basically a pull down of all the measures that are in them. So it was something like 2,000 different measures. A lot of them overlap closely. And so we're kind of selecting some that represent the best practices as far as that. We're also looking at, you know, how you can identify prioritizing equity in those, implementation challenges, those types of things. So I think the measures are probably the key thing to coordinate with the regions on, because they will have done a lot of this advanced work. There may be some benefit to coordinating on the GHG inventory because there will be a lot of data flowing from there, but there may be some technical challenges scaling it from the county or the MSA level down to the local level. And then there will be a lot of funding resources in there in terms of identifying funding resources and strategies. One of the real, I think, one of the magic, kind of like the magic sauce of this program was that it really emphasized regional climate action. And so our caps are generally focused on a single jurisdiction, and then what happens beyond that jurisdictional borders is kind of put off on some other agency. And so this is an opportunity, I think, to really identify what regional collaboration could happen between jurisdictions to go after funding the plan jointly moving forward.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Chair Plancarte. I just want to say I sit on the AQMD board too, and I think it can't be overemphasized enough how competitive this program was. Only 25 grants were given across the United States out of a huge amount of applications. So shout out to you and staff for helping to support that. And I think it's one of the largest ones that was given out, if not the largest.
The largest by EPA ever.
Yeah, by EPA ever. So, I mean, this is something we should celebrate, I think, as a committee too, and lift up every chance we get when somebody does something affiliated with it, because it's a great win for our region. So thank you.
Thank you. If there are no additional comments in room, we will go ahead to those online. Madam Clerk, do we have any raised hands?
We do. We have one, Britt Huff.
Oh, yes, thank you. And congratulations also. A great accomplishment. I just had a question about the 50 million that SCAG is overseeing. You may have flown by this, but the switching of the trucking to EVs, how is that going to be applied for or distributed?
So I would defer to our last mile freight program and exactly what their overall process is. But generally, what they have been doing historically with the funds that have already been dispersed through the last mile freight program is working directly with companies that, you know, are good movement companies, do last mile freight and identifying opportunities for them to partner and switch out these vehicles. But we can get back to you with what their specific application process is because I don't have those details in front of me right now.
So it's primarily companies that have, pardon me, already been involved in this.
There would certainly, I'm sure, be interest upon on behalf of companies that already been involved, but this will be open to anyone. And so there will be two separate processes here. AQMD will have an application process, which they're still working out with EPA on their grant agreement. And so I can't speak to those details yet. And then SCAG will have its process, which I'm anticipating will build on the previous process or the current process they have. But of course, whatever the grant agreement is with EPA will also impact what SCAG's how SCAG funds as well. So those details may result in it being a slightly different process or maybe a substantially different process to the current one. So I can't quite comment on that because I know that South Coast AQMD and EPA are currently working on hashing out all those details.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, do we have any additional raised?
No further raised hands.
Okay, thank you very much. We will now move on to, thank you very much, Mr. Wolf. We'll now go on to item 5, climate adaptation and mitigation grant opportunities. You will find that starting up on page number 38 of your agendas. And we're going to go ahead and ask for public comment. Anybody here from the public that wishes to speak on this item? How about online?
I see no raised hands.
Okay, thank you. So with that, we'll turn it over to Sebastian Chatty, Associate Regional Planner for SCAG. Good morning.
I'm sorry, Sebastian, could you turn your mic on?
Can you hear me now?
Yep, sounds good.
There are several upcoming grant funding opportunities related to climate and the environment we'll cover today. Many of these funding opportunities encourage or require collaboration between multiple entities and across sectors, including our partner agencies and CBOs. As a regional convening body, we at SCAG can help facilitate those connections and by doing so help to advance the priorities established for our region in Connect SoCal 2024. The grant opportunities I'm going to cover pull from 3 primary federal and state resources. First is the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, or IIJA, also known as the Infrastructure Bill. The IIJA supports projects like tree canopy expansion, pavement installation, and stormwater management. Second is the Inflation Reduction Act, or IRA, which is a federal initiative aimed at reducing greenhouse gases and promoting clean energy development. The IRA provides substantial funding for climate resilience and environmental justice programs and projects. The third primary source is the California state budget. The state's budget reflects California's leadership in climate action with investments in renewable energy, conservation, and environmental justice. Opportunities within the state budget are targeted at supporting environmental enhancement, climate resilience, and sustainability. Each of these grants are listed in the agenda package with more detail, and I'll briefly go over them and review the kinds of projects that can be funded by each. Starting off with the Inflation Reduction Act, a federal initiative targeted at climate action and environmental justice. We have one program within the IRA we're highlighting, which is the Environmental and Climate Justice Community Change Grants Program. This $2 billion program is designed to fund projects that benefit disadvantaged communities through reducing pollution, strengthening climate resilience, and building community capacity. Similar to the IRA's other programs, such as the Climate Pollution Reduction Grant Program, which Ryan briefly just touched on, this program prioritizes collaboration between CBOs, tribal governments, and local agencies. Moving on to the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. The IIJA contains 2 funding opportunities we're highlighting, the Healthy Streets Program and the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant Program. The Healthy Streets program funds projects meant to address urban heat island, air quality, and stormwater runoff and flooding risks. This program will fund projects like cool pavements, forest pavements, and expansion of the urban tree canopy. The Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant Program is meant to fund projects that reduce energy use, decrease fossil fuel emissions, and improve energy efficiency. While the application deadline is approaching quickly, it's important to note that similar programs are likely to be rolled out in the future. Moving on to the grant opportunities funded by the California state budget, from which the majority of the programs will cover are funded. The Environmental Enhancement Fund, which is being administered by the Department of Fish and Wildlife, will fund projects that support the enhancement and restoration of wetlands and wetland adjacent sites. The California Energy Commission is administering a program to fund projects that support the adoption of clean, dispatchable energy technologies to reduce our dependence on fossil fuels and increase the resilience of the state's energy resources. The Department of Resources, Recycling, and Recovery is providing funding for projects that reduce the environmental impact of vehicle tires by promoting the use of recycled waste tires in paving products. Another opportunity through the California Energy Commission is the Bridge 2024 program, which funds projects that encourage clean energy entrepreneurship by supporting applied research, development, and technology prototypes to help support growth in the private sector around clean energy. Looking again at our wetland ecosystems, the Department of Fish and Wildlife is administering the Addressing Climate Impacts Program, which funds projects addressing urgent water and habitat conditions connected to climate change, including water conservation, habitat restoration, and emergency response efforts. DFW is also administering a watershed restoration grant program. This program supports multi-benefit projects that are aligned with the California Water Action Plan, centering around the protection and restoration of ecosystems and wetlands across the state.
Good morning.
Wildlife Corridors, another DFW program, is being offered to fund projects that enhance wildlife connectivity and implement nature-based solutions that reduce habitat fragmentation and improve ecological resilience. For our frontline coastal communities, SB1 funded adaptation planning grants are also available through OPC. This program funds the development of sea level rise adaptation plans and the projects within them to build resilience along the entire California coastline. It's important to note that there is free technical assistance available to applicants to help put together application packages for this program. The California Coastal Conservancy is administering the Coastal Conservancy Grant Program, offering funding for projects that preserve, enhance, and improve access to the coast and coastal watersheds across California. Expanding inland a bit, the Department of Water Resources is administering the Urban Streams Restoration Program, which will provide funding towards projects that assist local communities in reducing risks associated with flooding and erosion while restoring and enhancing the natural ecological values of urban streams. For our partners in Riverside County, the Coachella Valley Mountains Conservancy is offering two funding opportunities. One designed to support the expansion of recreation and educational uses of conservation lands, and one designed to acquire more land for protection. Any public agencies, CBOs, and tribal nations that are located within the jurisdiction of the Coachella Valley Mountains Conservancy are eligible to apply. Looking again at our wetlands, the Department of Fish and Wildlife has two more opportunities focused on the protection, restoration, and enhancement of non-coastal wetlands, such as streams, rivers, and mountain meadow ecosystems. The Wetlands and Mountain Meadows Restoration Grant Program will fund projects that work to restore or enhance wetland or mountain meadow ecosystems. And the Proposition 68 Fish and Wildlife Improvement Grant Program also has funding available to support projects that specifically improve conditions for the fish and wildlife living in those ecosystems. The Proposition 68 Rivers and Streams Grant Program, also administered by the Department of Fish and Wildlife, is providing funding for projects that restore rivers and streams in order to improve conditions for fisheries and other wildlife. Projects submitted under this program should consider climate impacts and improving a community's ability to adapt to climate change. For an opportunity in recycling and waste reduction, the Department of Resources, Recycling, and Recovery is funding projects that promote the recycling of beverage containers to reduce waste across the state. For grid resilience, the California Energy Commission is offering grants to public agencies or tribal governments to support efforts designed to improve the reliability of the electric grid, reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and decrease local air pollution. Looking at recycled water, the State Water Resources Control Board is offering grants to support projects that promote the use of recycled water to augment freshwater supplies. The State Water Resources Control Board is also offering funding for drinking water cleanup efforts and efforts by public agencies to analyze and improve their current practices around water conservation. Also administered by the State Water Resources Control Board, the Safe and Affordable Funding for Equity and Resilience, or SAFER program, will fund projects that work to ensure clean and affordable drinking water for all Californians, with a particular focus on those residing in disadvantaged communities. Last but not least, the Department of Fish and Wildlife is providing funding specifically for the cleanup of watersheds that have been negatively affected by cannabis cultivation. I know this is a lot of information, so please feel free to reach out to us in the Sustainable and Resilient Development Department for more information on any of the programs we've highlighted today. And you can refer to the agenda packet for more details on all of these programs. I'll also be happy to answer any questions that you might have at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Sebastian. With that, we will go ahead and entertain comments in the room from members of this body. We don't seem to have any. Madam Clerk, any hands raised online?
We do. We have one. Tamala?
Good morning. Go ahead.
Good morning. Thank you. Thank you so much for this presentation and for showing us all the opportunities we have for grants. I checked the SCAG website for this list, and I'm curious, there's some that are not on the list. I'm curious if this SCAG website will be updated and to get the links for all of these grants if we're interested, and how we can get further information for our staff.
Thank you for highlighting this. We can certainly update the website and make sure that all of the information we've presented today is available to our members and the public.
Great, thank you. And when you do that, would it be possible just to send a quick email to us to let us know that it's there, and then we can forward it to our staff so that they can have a quick link to all these grants?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Any additional?
No more raised hands.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Great presentation.
Thank you.
We now move on to Energy and Environment Committee's outlook for future agenda items. This is located on page 65 of today's agenda. And this item, before we get started, any public comment on this item? Seems to nobody in the room. Any hands raised, Madam Clerk?
I see no raised hands.
Okay, so having no public comment, we'll go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Ryan Wolf for presentation.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. Good morning again. Before we get into some of the specific items on the slides in front of you, just wanted to give you some background. I think this is mostly in your staff report, but I'll just reiterate it. The first thing on schedules, we have a challenging year in terms of the number of meetings we're able to hold. October is Rosh Hashanah, so we're not going to hold a meeting during that time frame. We will be having November and December policy committees. If you recall, usually we don't have a December one because of the economic summit. We are incorporating our economic summit into our regional council this year so that we can still maintain that event. Also, January 2nd would be the meeting, since that falls on a Thursday, and I doubt anyone in here wants to be here on January 2nd, right after New Year's. So we will not have a meeting then either. All of this means that we will have about 6 meetings during this fiscal year. And so as you're looking at this outlook, just know that we've crammed as much as in here as we reasonably can. And we, of course, are happy to make adjustments, in conversation with you all. We can, in terms of the process for doing that, we obviously will take your comments today. And then moving forward, just like we did last year, this item will be on the receive and file item list. And if anyone would like to pull it to offer up any suggestions for items, they can do that as we proceed through each policy committee meeting. In terms of the way this slide is organized, there's 3 program areas that we're looking at. So Connect SoCal, generally, I think that's self-explanatory. Anything to do with the development or implementation of Connect SoCal will be found in that column. And then on the local resources side, this will be referring to programs that SCAG administers. This would include like the Sustainable Communities Program, REAP, anything along those lines. And then that will be on here for discussion. And then the last one is regional leadership. And so these are substantial regional policy discussions or issues to move forward. So with that, I'll kind of go through and highlight some of these areas and then stop and would appreciate any comments from you all. So from September to December, noting that there's no October meeting, we have a number of items related to Connect SoCal, related to improving amendments, the EIR. We also will have an implementation strategies progress report. Then moving up to the local resources side of things, we will have the 2024 Sustainable Communities Program guidelines coming to you all. Today, we also heard on the funding components and the climate adaptation or the CPRG program. And then, of course, we also are doing a water white paper right now, which is, if you recall, is part of the water action resolution that was brought forth a couple of years ago. And so we want to start queuing you up for some of the work that we're doing for that. So we're going to bring a groundwater recharge panel in here to talk about that issue. Also, we'll likely draw from some of the interviews we're currently conducting in that water white paper so that by the time we come with the water white paper update, you will have quite a bit of background already. Over on the regional leadership side, there's been interest in energy, of course, and we're trying to figure out how to really integrate that into this committee. So we're going to talk about microgrids and their role in regional resilience. And just a reminder that regional resilience in our standpoint refers to economic, built, social, and environmental. So we have a broad view of that as an agency. And then, of course, SB 375 target recommendation, which will be up, which we'll have a discussion related to that today. So moving into the new year, again, no policy committee in February, but on Connect SoCal, we are looking at having a joint policy committee on emerging technologies. This is something that's brought forth by President Hagman. We also have an innovative clean transit study, which will come to this committee. The water white paper, which I already mentioned. Also wanted to bring forth an item on climate resilience districts. If you're familiar with these are somewhat like EIFDs. There's a few significant differences, notably that you can also do maintenance and operations with these as opposed to just upfront capital. And so we wanted to bring that forward for you all because we know that having funding to implement solutions climate related is a key component of our partners. Also, we have a regional resilience framework process going up, which we'll bring forward to you to talk about the conversations have been happening in that project, and then a Clean Cities Coalition strategic plan. Moving into the latter several months of this, we also wanted to bring forth an infrastructure planning for climate vulnerability item. So obviously how we effectively integrate climate adaptation and mitigation into our infrastructure, recognizing that whether it be extreme heat, sea level rise, extreme precipitation, planning it into our infrastructure, in the early side of things is really important. And so we're working to put an item on that together. We also have our SALC study update. And so this is we received a grant from the state. It's the Sustainable Agricultural Lands Conservation Program. And we are going to be launching a study which will look at the economic benefits of natural and agricultural lands, including ecosystem services, resilience benefits, those types of things. And we will be launching that study in the new year. So we want to bring an update to you once we get going on that. We also want to talk about community adaptation overall, as well as climate ready home hardening. Also 30 by 30. We want to talk about the role of parks, especially in urban areas, to help with conservation, because there are a number of agencies who are in urban areas who are using their parks as a way to advance 30 by 30 initiatives. We also have the Smart Cities Electric Vehicle Incentives Program, the draft guidelines for that. And then on the regional leadership side, we want to talk about carbon sequestration, as well as the CARB SB 375 target setting update, which you'll hear about that process coming up next. So with that, I'll stop and happy to entertain any comments or questions.
And all that in six months, huh? 6 meetings. Okay, Do we have anybody in the room that wishes to comment on the outlook? Madam Clerk, do we have any raised hands online?
We do. Just one. Tamala?
Good morning.
Great. Good morning again. Thank you. Thank you for this presentation. I'm looking forward to discussing a lot of these topics. It'll be exciting upcoming meetings. I did have a quick question about the Joint Policy Committee on Emerging Technology. Can you speak a little bit to what emerging technology we might discuss? I'm thinking like, of course, AI probably is going to be on there, but I'm wondering if driverless vehicles, are we looking at solar battery? What is the emerging technology that we're going to be looking at?
I actually don't know, but I think now would be a good time if you have suggestions for what you'd like included in that. You can discuss it now, or it can be something going forward. I assume AI will be a part of it. There may also be some technology. Driverless cars may be a component of that, but I don't know that from what I've understood in my conversations with other staff that we have defined that closely yet. And so we have plenty of time to shape it with your input.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
Ryan, when do you see this meeting coming to fruition? What month roughly?
I think it'll be February.
February. So that gives us the opportunity to maybe get some email ideas in as well, some recommendations. I don't know, I'm thinking field trip with driverless cars, why not? For those that are willing to take the gamble, let's try it. Who knows? Okay, if there are any additional raised hands online?
I see no raised hands.
Okay, Ryan, thank you very much.
Thank you.
As always, great presentation. And now we move on to item number 7, Senate Bill 375 and Sustainable Community Strategy Overview. This item starts on page 68 of your agendas. Do we have anybody in the room that wants to make general public comment? Nobody coming out to the microphone. Do we have any raised hands online?
I see no raised hands.
Okay, so thank you very much. With that, I'd like to introduce Ms. Sarah Dominguez, SCAG Planning Supervisor, that will provide today's presentation. Good morning, Sarah.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. And apologies for the confusing title slide there, but I wasn't planning to keep it a secret that this presentation that's in your packet is the same as what was provided at the EAC retreat this summer. But SCAG staff thought it was important to bring this item to the broader Energy and Environment Committee because this is one of our most foundational guiding regulations, and we're at the cusp of a new target setting process. So I'm going to give you a truncated version of this presentation, really for some level setting as you start to hear more about the SB 375 target setting process. So in order to orient you to where we are today with this regulation, I want to take us back almost 20 years to when Governor Schwarzenegger first signed the California Global Warming Solutions Act, AB 32. So this was landmark legislation that set climate goals for the state of California and authorized CARB, the California Air Resources Board, to be the agency responsible to chart us a course for reaching those goals, and also with a responsibility to develop regulations to meet our climate goals. And with the understanding that transportation makes up the majority of the climate GHG emissions in our state, about 40%, shortly thereafter, the legislature passed SB 375. And I think the vision for that legislation is kind of reflected in this quote from Governor Schwarzenegger. And it wasn't just about the GHG emission reductions, but also all the co-benefits. So less time people spend in cars, having neighborhoods that we can pass on to future generations. And so with that, what does it mean for SB 375? And it's really a responsibility for metropolitan organizations like SCAG to develop a sustainable community strategy. So we now do this. Many of you are aware we just adopted our 4th iteration of this plan, Connect SoCal 2024, in April of this year. And it's really our way to show how we're going to grow in the future in conjunction with the transportation investments that we're making and how that's going to reduce GHG emissions from passenger vehicles. So with the passage of SB 375, it also authorized CARB to update our targets every 8 years. So they were first set in 2010, and then they were last updated in 2018 when our 2035 target was increased from 13% to 19%. And just this July, CARB initiated the target update process so that we can update our targets so that they can update the targets again by 2026. But I want to point out that in the last time that our targets were set, CARB also released a progress report that's pursuant to SB 150, because the legislature passed SB 150 to generally ask the question, is it working? Is SB 375 working? And the report that came out at that time, the conclusion was generally no, SB 375 wasn't working. And that's because implementation was not happening fast enough. And that's not to say that we're not implementing our SES, especially in the SCAG region. What we've seen since our first SES in 2012 is that we've seen more than 500,000 new households that are now located near transit. We have 1 million more jobs located near transit, and communities are seeing some of the co-benefits from this more coordinated land use transportation planning. We've also seen in, sorry, I'm gonna skip past that, in our planning themselves, what you're seeing here is numbers of what was actually going on in 2016 and then just kind of our subsequent plans. So we're seeing county transportation commissions and local agencies investing more in transit, and we're seeing decreased investment plan over plan in roadway capacity. But even with those changes and improved planning, we're not yet seeing the behavior change that we'd like to see in order to reach our GHG goals. So regional VMT per capita has stayed relatively stable. And what you're seeing here, the big chart is from Connect SoCal 2024, showing some commuter travel changes pre and after COVID. But generally, we're still seeing a lot of driving alone. And so in terms of implementation, what we've heard in surveying local jurisdictions is that jurisdictions often don't have the staff, the resources, and sometimes face political headwinds to implementing strategies in our SES. And so SCAG has a number of programs that we've developed to support local jurisdictions in implementing the SES. And we've had an influx of resources from the state with REAP 2.0. But however, consistently, these programs are oversubscribed. So what we're seeing is more demand for support to implement than we have resources for. Skip past these. So just more details in your packet about their implementation efforts. And so I mentioned earlier the 2018 progress report that said we're not on track to meet our goals through SB 375. A more recent iteration of this report came out in 2022, which made the same conclusion, but also identified throughout the report 56 different actions needed to be made by local, regional, or state agencies in order to advance or accelerate SES implementation. But I want to note that of those, 52 of them required some sort of state action. And so what we're seeing, and not only from our own perspective, but also recognized by the state is that, or by CARB, is that there needs to be more state leadership in terms of, whether it's legislation or funding incentives in order for us and all the regions to implement their SESs. One area that we have seen the state make a really big progress is in the passage of Advanced Clean Cars 2. So this was a regulation that says that by 2035, all new vehicle sales in the state of California need to be zero emission. So this is great for getting us to our climate goals, but it also means for SCAG and for our SES, we can no longer take credit for the investments that we make in EV incentives or charging, because they now say that that's a state action, and SCAG no longer gets credits for that investments. So all of this history and context that I swept through about 10 to 15 years of work is just to kind of bring you to what is ours and our peer MPO's conclusion is that we're currently facing a broken technical process. And by that, I mean that we are, consistently, or each cycle, CARB staff requires more and more technical data and analysis, and SCAG staff are spending a lot of time and resources working with and negotiating with CARB on technical issues instead of focusing on implementation, which they also recognize is the real challenge with this program. And so, and I don't want to say that that we're critiquing the SES. I think that we recognize that SB 375 has created kind of a shift in how we plan, and we've seen each SES improve in its ability to integrate land use and transportation planning, but we want to be able to focus more on implementation. One of the reasons, and I just also want to highlight the fact that staff are compelled to satisfy any of CARB's requests in terms of explaining the technical methodology between our for our SES because of the money that's on the line for it. SB1 funded programs are now tied to the acceptance by CARB of our SES, and that's particular to the Solutions for Congested Corridors and the Trade Corridor Enhancement Program. Since 2020, the last time our SES was accepted by CARB, we've received about $1.5 billion from those two programs. So it's a significant amount of resources that we need in our region in order to actually reduce GHGs. And so it's really important for us, and that's why we devote so much time in working with CARB staff to satisfy these technical issues. But we would like to be able to focus more staff and time and resources to the implementation that we know that is the true barrier to making this program a success. And then just more generally, the context of the program has also shifted. There's a lot of new state regulations that we're trying to coordinate through our regional planning process. And then the passage of Advanced Clean Cars 2 means that as we get closer to 2035, more and more of the vehicle miles traveled, or VMT, is going to be zero emission. So what does that mean for MPOs, for our targets? And that is the context of that we're going into this new target setting process with CARB. And we hope to work with both the state and other partners to advance a framework that's more focused on implementation instead of modeling, and to actually reach the goals of GHG reduction in the state. So I could probably go on for another hour on SCSs and SB 375. So I'm very happy to answer any questions, or also stay after if anybody wants to talk with me directly about this. But as of right now, CARB just kicked off the target setting update process. So we anticipate bringing future items to you as this develops and as they start to release any preliminary recommendations.
Thank you, Sarah. Ms. Clark?
Yeah, I have two questions. First of all, I don't understand this that second bullet.
So
why does it say but instead of and?
I think that there's a conversation going on in the state right now just about the use of VMT as a metric and its interchangeability with GHG. And I think we recognize that although VMT reduction becomes less tied to GHG reduction, so it's not a 1-for-1 anymore, we still recognize that VMT reduction still matters. So it's not that we're giving up and we say that VMT reduction doesn't matter anymore. If all of the VMT is electric, then there's no emissions associated with it, perhaps, but there's still VMT benefits that still equates to time spent in your car, that still equates to, different land use impacts of
And then the other
travel.
thing is, why, can you explain why the state is getting credit instead of SCAG?
Yeah, it's kind of a gray area, and it's not in the SB 375 statute language itself, but it kind of has to do with that original scoping plan. In that original scoping plan, there's goals towards the, like a kind of a sub-target for transportation. And when SB 375 was developed, it's able to reduce a lot of what we need from the transportation sector, but CalCog calls it the 6% gap. There's still a gap of what the state needed to do in order to reduce emissions from the transportation sector. So CARB decided that anything that we do, like they had I don't know if you're familiar with Blue Car LA, which is like a ride share or a car share service in LA County. That was a CARB funded program. So they said, SCAG, you don't get any credit for any VMT, GHG reduction from that program. That's ours, we funded it. So there's this kind of weird, like, being counting of just like, that's ours. So that's generally like the framework for why I said that we don't get credit for that. Because they said there's no further action that you can take as a region that will reduce, will lead to more EV adoption than what we've already done. So that's essentially why.
Sure.
Electric vehicles are out of your model now. Are you guys going to start to put hydrogen or about 15 types of hydrogen? Oh, hello. Good. Yeah. Hydrogen. Hydrogen fuel stations. Hydrogen are, since electric vehicles are out of your model now, are you going to push to a different model, which are, like I said, hydrogen fuel station, hydrogen vehicles? There are approximately about 15 different models that manufacturers are now making. So are you going to try to use that in your new model with CARB 2?
I just want to clarify, I wouldn't say that EVs are out of our model. Like we still are, in terms of like meeting our Clean Air Act reduction, like we're still acknowledge the fact that EVs will be in the fleet. And the same is true for hydrogen. So we're watching, what the trends are with adoption of hydrogen. And so that is reflected in our modeling for our regional transportation plan. In terms of strategies, what's in Connect SoCal right now, there's a EV incentive purchase, like to incentivize EV purchases. And I believe that there's some hydrogen. We try to be fuel neutral on those strategies, but it is increasingly what we talk about in the plan is EVs, but we're not.
Right. Every time I listen, it's always EVs.
EVs, yeah.
And not that I own a hydrogen car, I don't, but I'm just trying to make sure that we don't forget about hydrogen
Yeah.
because hydrogen is a better efficient car than an electric car. Zero emissions, water.
Point taken. I think we need to make sure that we're always saying zero emission vehicle
Right.
instead of
Water, yeah.
EV. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Thank you, Ms. Crosswhite.
So in your conversations with CARB, will part of this conversation continue to be this fact that we're not getting credit for some of that? Because while the state set the goal, it is dependent upon the cities and the counties and the region to plan for the infrastructure that's needed in order to be able to reach the state's goal. Is that at all part of the conversation, or is the conversation around, are there different metrics then that can be set? Or I'm sort of curious a little bit more about how do you envision that conversation going?
Yeah, absolutely. And we did try to have this conversation in this last SES development, but since we were able to meet the target without getting credit for that, we kind of just like let it go. Let's move forward. But I think especially as part of the target setting process, that needs to be on the table because, I mean, there's been how many articles recently in the news about that we do not have enough charging. And so there's going to be responsibility by MPOs, by local jurisdictions to give us the infrastructure that we need. And SCAG has had studies recently. So we're putting in the work to do this. And so to say that we don't have a role, it kind of disincentivizes us. And we know that our peers like in MTC, they're developing their plan right now in the Bay Area, and they have significant investments that they're making in their charging network. So yeah, it's absolutely still on the table and we need to negotiate that point.
Yeah, because whether it's electric infrastructure or hydrogen stations or whatever it is, the transportation commissions and the cities and everybody's having those conversations, including SCAG. And so it just seems like to not get credit for any of that, like you said, is a disincentive. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Margaret? Mr. Prop?
And this is something minor, but to our honorable friend who talks about hydrogen, my mother, who I was proud got a hydrogen car, is now joining the class action suit against hydrogen because there's only one fueling station in the entire west side of Los Angeles for hydrogen. And 3/4 of the time, if it goes to that station, it's out of order. So hydrogen will only work if it's really emphasized. And right now, instead of being an emerging technology, at least with autos, it's going to become a dying technology. And that while that's sad, my 96-year-old mother can't get hydrogen fuel and is suing Toyota along with other people to have them pay for the car and take it back because she can't get fuel. That's just an aside comment, but just wanted you to know that.
Bring it back.
I think I've said it about every 4 or 5 months here, but yeah, but there's the promise and the reality. And right now there was the promise and it was a great idea. And a couple of car manufacturers went for it. But if they can't use it, yeah.
Right. Being no more in the room, Madam Clerk, we have any raised hands online?
No, I don't see any raised hands.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, moving on today's agenda. I want to remind everybody of the upcoming demographic workshop. Please join SCAG for the 2024 Southern California Demographic Workshop. That'll be September 24th from 9 to 3 at these offices. Online attendance will also, participation will also be available. Next meeting, a reminder that there is no October meeting. Next meetings are September 7th and December 5th. And last but not least, wanted to once again welcome the Honorable Patricia Locke Dawson, District 68 Riverside, to this committee. Thank you for joining us. Are there any reports? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to take a quick second to thank SCAG staff, Rachel as well, for setting up this amazing tour that we went on. Some of the individuals here in the room went on the tour as well last week to see if I remember. Port Hueneme, right? It was a great tour. Thank you to the entire staff down at Port Hueneme, the director, the commission. Being a Navy veteran, it was kind of like shame on me. That was my first time visiting it. I should have visited a long time ago. But great information, great energy. The things they're doing down there definitely is setting them apart from, other ports. I had never been around so many Beamers or bananas in my entire life. So thank you guys for setting up that staff. Staff, appreciate you.
Yeah, I'm a Marine and I've been to Port Hueneme.
All right, we do have one hand raised online, Madam Clerk. I can see there's one hand up.
Yes, Member Wilson? It looks like he stepped away, but
Okay, he looks like he stepped
Oh.
away. There you
Sorry
go.
about that. I was trying to figure out how to get that echo off, but I don't know. So can you repeat this upcoming schedule?
Yes, there is no October meeting. There will be November 7th and December 5th.
Okay. All right. So just trying to figure out, I'll be at either the November or the December meeting, and it'll be my last meeting. I am decided not to run for re-election. So December 10th will be my last council meeting here in Signal Hill, and it's 28 years. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Wow.
Thank you so much.
Well, I certainly hope you make both, but at least one, so they can, we shake your hand and thank you for your service. Thank you.
Thank you. I probably will be at both.
I see no additional hands raised online. Mr. Ramos will go on to Rachel for her staff's report.
I don't have
That'd be
any.
on Port Hueneme, right?
No, it actually wasn't, but thank you. Thank you, Councilmember, for attending that. It was great to have folks from areas outside of Ventura County come up for the day and see what the port does and just, all the good things that they're doing up there. So glad you got to see what we'll probably have another one at some point, and we'll open it up for everyone to attend.
Don't forget about the Banana Festival coming up as well.
Yes, there is their annual Banana Festival is on September 28th on Saturday, and it's a free family-friendly event. So if you're available, you should head on up there. Lots of bananas, lots of fun, lots of activities. So that's the city, and I don't think they've officially approved that. Yeah, I don't think that passed, but yeah. So this is the Port of Hueneme, which yes. But I don't have any announcements. I was just going to remind everyone about the upcoming schedule, which our chair just did. So that's all I have.
And BMW's clearance sale. Okay, so with that, if there is no additional comments from members of this body, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.